These are the tools required to make the gate. So we've got grinder, SDS rotary with a 10mm. You've got your tack gun with the 5/16 bit or your 3/8 bit, 13mm socket, your wall plugs. You can have 100mm, 80mm or 130. Use washers on your coaches. Hammer, tape measure, a drill bits and a square. You also got your lock or whatever hardware you need, hinges, techs and post caps. So installing a gate. Now, depending on what's on the side of the house will depend on where the gate can actually sit. So we've got a meter box. This will probably be your NBN. You have your retic box, a hose that's usually for the front of the house, and down pipe. So most of the time, unless you've got a WAS lock, which is government approved, you'd be putting it behind most. So I'm going to be putting it here on the wall. Now to measure, you measure top and bottom. So up here is 1065, and down here is 1060. Now always go off your smaller measurement because that still allows for your gaps, regardless if the top's got a bigger gap. It's better to go off your small side, so 1060. Now 1060 being a Colorbond gate, you'll have two 50/50 posts, and you allow 30mm gaps, so 15mm each side, and then your gate in the middle. So 1060 minus 100, which is your two Colorbond posts, is 960 minus 30mm for your Colorbond gate. It's a 930 wide gate. Now if it's a PVC gate, your posts are usually either 100 or 127s, and then your gap should be out 40mm, so 20mm each side. The hinges are a bit bulkier, you need to allow more room, otherwise you will get stuck. Alright, now measuring for the posts. Now you've got to check for your paving height. So the best way to do it is find the footing on the house. Now from the footing on the house, it's usually about 80 to 90mm, which means that first course here is where the paving sits. Good reference point is where these sit. So you've got to allow, when you measure your gate, obviously if your gate is 1750 or 1800, depending on what it is, obviously you allow a 50mm gap underneath the bottom of the gate. So if it's a 1750 gate, mark 1800 on the wall, and then add the distance to the slab, which is 1900. This is the second gate on the house. Now originally the customer wanted it just here, just in front of this pillar. Now the problem we have is this frame is actually in the way, so I spoke to the customer, we're actually bringing it back. Now something specific about this, so you can tell that this walkway is a little bit awkward because of this pillar being in the way. So essentially we're actually not going to be hinging off the house side, we're going to hinge it off this side here. So the trick with this, obviously you don't have both sides to mark off, so you immediately only mark off the bottom and take your deductions from that. So this side here, coming just past this down pipe, not just past this drain, sorry, 1240. So 1240 then becomes your measurement, minus 100 for your posts and 30 for your gaps. Alright, now these are gate posts. This here is actually the gate frame for the gate kit. And then just here we have some little U-channel flashings that go inside the gate, but we'll get to that a bit later. So these 4 posts, 2 are already 1800, so we're going to use those on the double wall side. And the other 2 we're going to concrete one in, and we're just going to cut the other. So I've already marked my cut for one. So you just square it off all the way around. Now that's squared off. Now, this one here and these 2 here will be bolted to the wall. So usually what I like to do is come down from the top 300mm, mark 2 spots, and the bottom. Now when you got to think about the gate, it's pulling from the top of the post. If you go right down the bottom for your second bolt, it's not really holding any of the weight. It's usually just the top one, that's just holding the post to the wall, because when it pivots it's still going to hit the wall, but obviously it's pulling from the top. So the bottom I usually bring up a bit more. So instead of doing the bottom at 300, I might bring it up to about 6. That's obviously your discretion, but bringing it up just sort of helps the gate stay sturdier for longer. Now we're going to mark them off. With each one, I like to mark off 25mm, the center of the post, so that when you're drilling it, it's always perfectly center on everything. Use your square so that all your bolts, everything all line up on everything you do, so there's no awkward bits. There you go, so that's that. Now we'll get to drilling them. So you're going to need a drill and a 10mm bit. Don't go straight to a 10, start off on something a bit smaller. Safety. Alright, so these are the holes we marked out. Here you can see the small hole. Start off with the pilot, and then you step it up to a 10mm. Then usually go through the other side, just 10mm as well. So you can step these ones. Flip the posts, get a nice sharp drill bit. Colorbond's usually best. Now, one thing to watch out for on these posts, one side has a join. So if you look at this blank post over here, you can see a clean face. When you flip it and spin it around, you can see on this side here, there's two lines that run through. Usually it's one single line, that's the join side. I put the join side of the post against the wall, so the post looks nice and clean. But just check, find the side, if there is a side that has scratches, put that against the wall so you're not having to swap posts out for no reason. All right, now we're ready to install the posts. One thing to be mindful of is what type of this brick this is, whether it's a double or single. Now both of these are garage, which means usually they're single brick, which is something to be mindful of. So this side here is open. Now I've already measured to where my post is going to sit. I've actually brought it in further, because if you actually come from this side and measure in, if I come deep enough, I've got a double brick. If I'm here and I do anything too big, you will blow out the wall, and then we've got a big issue. So I've measured back, 1900 will sit inside this double brick, which means obviously my hinge side is going to have a nice double brick to bind to. This side here, I can't check. So now I have to make sure that when I put my coaches in, then I'm not going to bust through this wall. So what I've done is I've taken my 100mm coaches and I put a line on my bit, so I know that when I drill through, if I go past that line, danger. That's my mark. So what I'll do now is use my little level, square my post in the wall, pilot my holes, take the post away, drill through to 130mm, because I'll do 130mm coaches on this side. You can use 130s, 100s or 80s like I said before. I'm going to use 130s on this side just because it's the hinge side. This one here I'll use 100s just so I don't bust through that wall. Alright, so this post here is now bolted. Now one thing to do to make sure you square off with the next house or fence, I like to measure from the front. Sometimes you might have a paving line you can go off as a reference, but having the front of the house is good. So I can measure through back. The edge of my post is 1908. Now to measure across, whether you use a 2 meter or a 1200 level, you put the level against the house, line it up with where it has to sit. You can basically see here that this is actually in line with this house. So I know if I go 1908 back from here, 1908 and put a mark, that there is exactly square with this post. Now our gate's going to sit nice and square between the two. Alright, so building the gate. The gate's 930 wide. We know these are 50 by 50s, so we know we immediately take 100 off for the rails, so these are 830. Now these slot straight on these U-channels on this side. We can turn the camera through. So all you've got to do is you've got to squeeze this top side, and they should fit straight on. There we go. Now you can use a rubber mallet if you want. Flush to the post. Same again on this side. Now this rail, lucky for me, is exactly 830. One Colorbond sheet is 830. Takes a bit of TLC, but it does go in. There we go. Flush. I find at this point having a clamp's good. Get in the middle somewhere, just for the moment while you grab the sheet. Got the sheet just here. The sheet slots straight down these rails. Too big. Need to cut 50mm off. Alright, so we'll just cut the sheet down to suit the gate. Now these new AA fencing flashings are quite tight, so I find it good to slide them on the sheet first before you slide it actually in the gate. So all you've got to do is work from the top down, get the first piece in, slide them down, do that to both sides. So to cut these rails for the gate, obviously your posts are 50 by 50, so you take 100mm off. So this gate being 930 wide, 830 size rails. Now once they're in, you want to measure on the inside and cut your sheet to suit the size of the gate. So this one's already been pre-cut. The flashings, now the new AA fencing flashings are tighter than a U-channel. So essentially what you have to do is slide them on the sheet first, as we've already done on these sides, before you put them in the gate. It's much easier that way. When you get the sheet, slide it down. When this other side goes on, it's going to be nice and tight. So, now I'm going to get my clamp again, clamp the bottom of the gate. It's going to hold itself there for me, mostly. Get this side here, same process again. Slot one side in, squeeze the rail, and that should pop. Do the other side. Be aware it is quite tight to get these on. Alright, so we've got the flashing inside the channels here, inside the rails. Now I'll just work it in. We now lay the gate down. See here you've got your frame set now. What you want to do is make sure your flashings are sitting nice and square, which most likely means you've got to twist them around. Now once they're twisted, essentially what you do, you put 2 screws. Usually I put one in line with this ridge and then about 100 mil over, and same again. Sort of just trying to make them even on top and bottom. Do that on the inside. And on the outside, you just do 1 screw. I find that doing less on the front makes the gate look cleaner.